Don't you worry, the clip's about to begin, but don't forget to subscribe. Or else, don't make me turn this website around.
Let's talk to Ameet. Ameet in New York. How you doing?
Hi, Jimmy. Hi, John. I'm doing well. How about you?
Hey,
Just fine.
doing good.
Awesome. Do you want me
Yeah.
to just go ahead?
Yeah, dive on in.
Awesome. So I am an atheist and I am very, very pro-choice. However, there's a situation from India which kind of leaves me a little bit conflicted. And I thought maybe you guys could give me a little bit more nuance or something to think about, maybe add more information to it.
Okay,
Okay.
go for it.
Yeah. So in India, historically is a very patriarchal society. People value male children a lot more than female children, and historically there's been a practice of female infanticide. So when the child is born, if it's a female, they kill the child, right? Now, with the advent of technology and a little bit more scientific progress, what people are able to do is they're able to determine the sex of the baby in the womb. And sometimes people who are not very ethical, they commit it's a crime in India, but it basically, they abort the fetus if it's a female fetus. And India has placed a restriction on female feticide in this case, saying that you can't have an abortion after the point where the baby's sex is determinable. So I wanted to kind of get your opinion on that and see, hey, how does one square something like this against, abortion? And sometimes, the family pressures the I want to say the parent giving birth to actually go ahead with this abortion, right?
Yeah, you want me to go first, John?
Sure. Yeah. Go ahead.
So generally, I'm opposed to coerced abortion. Period. There's as far as you actually see it in cults quite a bit, and there's a lot of information that may have even been going on in early Mormonism with Joseph Smith and people, coerced and pressured, especially for bad reasons. Of course, I'm opposed to those attitudes. As far as restrictions go, I also believe in unrestricted abortion. I think that it should be between a doctor and the person. Unfortunately, because I believe in unrestricted access to abortion, that means I do believe people have rights to abort for bigoted reasons, and there's nothing we can do about it. So that could mean that they don't like the race of the baby. That can mean they don't like the gender of the baby, whatever. Even though that is a super bigoted reason to do it, I think that everybody has a right to abort a pregnancy, literally on basically any grounds. Now, I think that when it comes to late-term abortions, that's meant to be a much more intensive between a doctor and the pregnant person situation, but I still wouldn't put the government in the way. I would also still think a person is scum for doing that. But what you're talking about right now is something that's also a societal issue of basically reinforced sexism that's also going to fuck up that society. Because if you make the percentages of sexes so unbalanced in the favor of male babies, especially, you're going to have China is seeing some of this stuff, for example, big population problems and big consumption problems in the future, as the even as it affects the economy as well too. And at the core of that obviously is a bigotry, a sexist bigotry. So of course you have to work on that, and there's a societal improvement that needs to happen yesterday, so as rapidly as you can. Regarding the restriction to abortion, again, and I think it's despicable and disgusting, but yes, you do still have a right to, basically, to me, especially, like I said, when you talk about the late-term stuff, that's a more intensive situation with the medical provider. And most of those abortions, and I've literally spoken to doctors who perform abortions about this, most of those abortions are things like, if you give birth to your child, because of their lack of kidneys, they will suffocate in front of you and die. So, alternatively, we can euthanize this child. They will not feel a thing. They will essentially fall into an even sleepier state than what it's like to be a baby inside the womb, and they'll have no knowledge of anything. That's almost all late-term abortions. I mean, it's and not to mention late-term abortions are also extremely, extremely rare in general. So when it's prior to that moment, even as an ethical consideration, not as a legal consideration, a baby prior to any ability to really perform even the most basic cognitive tasks, or a fetus, to me is no more a human in need of special consideration than a mole or a tumor or anything, except for that you may have an intention for that growth. So to the individual, you have to respect their intention for that and the love that they might have and such. But other than that, when it comes to removal, I don't believe there's any reason we can say you must give birth to, for example, to a bigot. Because I am pro-abortion, I am not saying that it would be better to go, you bigot must give birth to that baby that you have a bigoted view against, and either put it in the adoption system or raise it as the bigoted parent you are. It's an unfortunate thing and it's a sad thing, but I think the right to abortion is so universal that unfortunately it also applies to bigotry. But just like I am, as far as legal stuff goes, I think that freedom of speech means you also get to be a bigot. There's so much about that. Now, obviously, there are lines to that, to when it becomes harassment or abusing somebody else, but it is the unfortunate reality that these rights that we need to keep in place sometimes get utilized by garbage people, but it doesn't remove the fact that they should have that right. What do you think, John? Solve abortion.
Yeah,
Us two cis men, let's just solve abortion for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I'm right there with Jimmy. I think that unrestricted access to abortion is universally a good thing, even though that will result in sometimes bigoted reasons being why somebody gets an abortion. I also disagree with, pressuring somebody into getting an abortion. And so I know, at least here in America, more access to abortion has only resulted in the decrease in the need for abortion, or the decrease in overall abortions being had. And I totally disagree with the law that says after the gender can be determined, you cannot get an abortion. That I feel like is going to do a lot more harm than good. So ultimately, I think that, unrestricted access to abortion, while maybe exploited by some people, is an overall good for society in general. It's quite similar to my position on abortion, I guess, in general, because I'm very pro-choice. Like, I think that everybody should have the choice, to get an abortion if they feel like they want it or need it in some kind of way. But I also, my personal self, I would never, want like KC to get an abortion. We would definitely have a child, and at any point in my history, I would have opted to have the child rather than abort. But that's just my own personal preference, and I get that not everybody has the luxury of being able to choose necessarily in that situation. So ultimately, pro-choice is my position. Unrestricted, access to abortion services.
Yeah, a lot of people mistake whether pro-choice and pro-life. I remember having somebody who was like, what people need to understand is that you can be pro-life and be okay with other people getting an abortion. And it's like, no, you can't. Being pro-life and pro-choice has nothing to do with whether. And by the way, it's not even pro-life; it's pro-birth. But it has nothing to do with what you would do for yourself. It has to do with what it's a political position as far as what the policy affecting others should be.
Right. Well, just Casey wanted me to clarify, we would be having a child because that is her decision and not that I'm like forcing her to have a child or anything. Sorry, that whole part of the conversation took place in my head and it didn't, it didn't make it out of my.
I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. It's so cute that you think you get to decide it all. Anyway, Ameet, does that give you some direction and clarity and maybe help you work through some of those? The thing when a lot of terrible things come together, but at the root of them is something you do value, where it's like, okay, abortion is something that I think is actually a very, very positive thing, despite the fact it can be very traumatic for people. It can be very emotional. It can be a very tough experience for a lot of people to go through. It's still overall as how it affects people's lives and stuff is still a very, very positive thing. But obviously anything can kind of be abused in that way. So I hope that you're picking up that like you don't have to feel like your feelings about the way abortion is being utilized is contradictory and making you less pro-choice. That's like, I'm very pro-internet, but horrible things happen on the internet, like YouTube. No, I'm kidding. But there's a lot of horrible stuff on the internet. And yeah, you can separate the things.
Yeah, no, that really helps, Jimmy. John, thank you so much. It like, especially the way you guys put it, where yes, you have the freedom, but bigots can also do have that freedom. That definitely helps. And the analogy to the internet, I mean, yeah. Thanks. It definitely reinforced my pro-choice position, and now I have something else to take up with the Indian government eventually.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Ameet.
Thank you so much, Jimmy and John. Love the Sometimes show as well. So talk to you guys later.
Thank you. Thank you.
Appreciate that. You have a good night.
Did I mention at the top of the show this is my 3-year anniversary? I don't remember if I did. Today's 3 years for Jimmy Snow. That's when I popped on YouTube 3 years ago. It's very exciting.
Yeah, I remember. I think wasn't I one of the first people to come on your channel?
You were. So the first people I collabed with, I think you were in episode 2 of Sunday Mass, because the first one was this one dude from the ACA, Drew and Shannon, and then I think you were on week 2. Does that sound right, or did we do something before Sunday Mass started?
No, I remember Sunday Mass was the first time we were on. So
gotcha.
That's what I didn't mean the very first ones,
no,
just in first.
Yeah, you were there way early.
Kind of.
Yeah, it's funny how like there's a lot about that time frame that it's like, you know, they say time flies when you're having fun. It feels like it was yesterday, but also 100 years ago. And I'd like to thank the Trump administration for making that time warp possible, because that's exactly what the Trump administration feels like.
I agree.
Hey, thanks for checking out this clip for The Line. While you're here, hit that like button, hit subscribe, turn on notifications, and then share this with that bitter uncle of yours who loves talking about the good old days.